I absolutely love MMORPGs. That really shouldn't be that big of a surprise to anyone who's been around this channel for like more than 10 seconds. But every now and then, I want to delve into the survival genre, a genre that in recent years has kind of started to nibble around the edges of the MMO genre, has tried to take some of those gameplay loops specifically, as well as the co-op parts, the social parts, and give them in little bite-sized packages. So that's why I wanted to do this video on some of the best survival games out there for fans of MMOs, or perhaps I should say, MMO refugees. These are the games that might fill that little void in your heart, at least for a little while you wait for your next big MMO. Whether you like to cut down trees, build monstrosities, or tackle epic bosses. Before we jump into the top 5, I'm going to give you a bonus right off rip, because there's one game that I don't think deserves to be in the top 5 just yet, but one that I think is not only solid right now, but will continue to get better and better as time progresses, and that's RuneScape Dragonwilds. It'll always be somewhat limited by having such a small player limit of only 4 players, one of the biggest limiting factors for fans of MMOs, as we're used to even group sizes of being 6 or so players. But RuneScape Dragonwilds could very well be in the top 3 of these once all is said and done, or if this list comes out in say 2026. It's hard-coded as an RPG from the path toward facing dragons to dungeon crawling with friends to equipment upgrading, magic spells, and interesting quests and lore throughout the world. It just needs more of all of those things to make this list. But if you want to play a game in early access, if you're a fan of the RuneScape IP and you want to see what this game is all about, I had a lot of fun with its kind of unique take on gathering using magic, as well as, well, basically my base getting destroyed by dragons.
Leonard Degrassi or something like that?
Leonard Degrassi?
Is that his name? The science guy, the other science guy. He's pretty cool. Oh wait, I forgot to eat. No, Red, help. Help. Okay, I'm alive. I'm at 1 HP. I almost died, bro.
Here, I just dropped some fried cabbage.
Oh,
Eat the cabbage.
Thank you so much.
Jesus.
Holy crap, I forgot.
Oh! Oh, what the fuck? Where's the dragon?
Oh! Oh! That fucking scared me.
What the fuck?
I'm poisoned. I'm dying.
What the fuck? What the fuck? Baby. Oh my god. Oh shit. What is happening?
Bro, what is happening right now?
Ah!
Hey, bitch, I just built this house. What the hell?
What the fuck? Oh my god.
What just happened? Why are we being attacked? Bro, you know what? They came for you because of the beams, bro. They came because of the beams.
The fucking dragon.
Holy shit, bro. What the fuck?
Get in the house,
This is so not chill.
Get in the house. Get in the house.
I'm running.
Wait, there's poison in the house.
Oh, there's poison in the house.
Oh shit.
The fucking chicken is attacking me.
That chicken's about to get obliterated,
Why is
dude.
happening? Red. Oh.
Wait, did you die to the chicken? But let's move from dragons and magic to not those things. The opposite of those things. Bellwright. Another game that isn't fully released, but has been making steady development so far. And our first on this list is probably the most contentious because it's not very fantasy. It's more historical fiction than anything else. Here, there are no dragons, no orcs, no magic spells. But there are harsh winters, copious amounts of citizens to recruit for your village, and a noble quest to retake the lands from a despotic king. Bellwright is an interesting survival game for a few reasons. Its weather system is top-notch, from seasons with real impact and impressive visuals to thunderstorms. It's an intricate build system that relies on the blueprints rather than handcrafting each individual block. It limits customization, but makes it simpler to manage. And it doubles down on that simplicity by having NPCs you can recruit who can do those tasks for you, allowing you and your friends to go out and pillage bandit camps or complete quests. The combat itself is directional, taking a bit of time to get used to, especially when you start adding in your little army of villagers to your squads and controlling them. It's a promising game that's still in early access, but can already provide a great deal of fun. I do, however, recommend playing this with others and even with the aforementioned NPC assistance, as it can get very, very tedious without friends to play with. I also want to point out, just as a little bit of warning before going into this game, that its developer, publisher, Snail Games, Donkey Crew, doesn't have the best track record. Lots of somewhat abandoned games or games that don't quite fit the description of what they're aiming for. But so far, Bellwright has been what it's advertised as, and it's getting closer and closer to being a full, complete game. I personally had a lot of fun in it, but it's still at the bottom of this list for a reason, and it's not just because there's no dragons. Coming in at number 4, we have a fully released game and the only top-down game on the list. It's also the only game with vampires on this list, at least to my knowledge. If you prefer the playstyle of games like Albion Online, I think you'll be right at home with V Rising, which released into 1.0 just last year. In V Rising, you take on the role of a vampire, and perhaps more than any other on this list, the game puts the pedal to the metal with boss hunting, with 15 unique bosses to fight, with or without friends to gain unique abilities and recipes. It's also perhaps the least story-focused out of the games on this list, providing more of a sandbox experience where you build up your character and your castle, all in this top-down view. This is also, outside of Dune, one of the most MMO-like games in terms of size, with private servers up to 60 players and clans up to 20. It's a game that I put quite a few hours into, and it follows the same kind of normal tropes you would expect in a survival game of building up your base, building up to the next requirement, and just on and on in this kind of vertical progression style. It's very simple in that way, but it's still addicting in that way as well. And it's definitely one that I would also recommend playing with friends, though out of the games on this list, this may be the one that handles itself best when played solo compared to the other ones. All the other ones feel a bit too much. This one feels kind of more manageable, at least in my opinion. Ironically, like the other larger server game that's going to be on this list, you also have to dodge the sun a lot in this game, though I think in V Rising it's quite a bit worse. Dune Awakening comes in at number 3 on this list and is the second in the top 5 that makes you fear the sun as a pale, pasty ginger. I feel seen. So seen. There's a reason why I record at night. Dune is also perhaps the most interesting on this list for how it straddles the MMO and survival genres. There will still be people who argue that this is an MMO, as its world servers seem to be able to handle at least hundreds of players, if not thousands, but the way they're sectioned off into 40-player instances on the areas where you have to build, and the maximum of hundreds in the deep desert, has me sliding this into a ambitious MMO-like. That said, the gameplay loops will be familiar to MMO players: vertical progression, questing, endgame, all with a healthy serving of survival craft base building and a deep crafting system that creates an addicting one more tier type of progression. I reviewed my first impressions of Dune Awakening during the earlier beta build, and I came away impressed with its visuals, ambient storms, and devastating sandworms. I was less impressed with its combat, building, and enemy variety, the last of those being my main concern going forward, though the same concern applied to Bellwright as well, with just basically human bandits. Since that first impressions, I put significantly more hours into the game alongside some friends and found that at least the building, while still frustrating with how things clip through your buildings and how they can be used to grief other players by covering resources or blocking pathways, is much better than I had initially thought. Combat is also a bit better, but it's still just kind of okay. The deeper you go, it's just a little bit more fun, but it's still very repetitive. And honestly, the dagger stands out as by far the worst with the animations. Things like the sword feel much better, as well as the ranged weapons. So a lot of the combat you see in clips is that dagger, and that it looks and feels as bad as it is. This game's version of dungeons can be fun, at least the first time, but they become very repetitive with the same enemy types over and over, the same essential linear layout for them, all just an overall lack of variety. If you're noticing a trend here, it's things tend to get repetitive. And that's what I was worried about when I first played the game. The things feeling repetitive due to the same kind of setting, the same kind of enemies, and very similar combat. The survival crafting stuff, that kind of progression is great. It doesn't feel as repetitive. The combat, the dungeon exploring, the MMO-like stuff feels a bit repetitive. Now that said, the group play for an MMO fan can still be fun in these instances. I found these runs through the labs which serve as the game's dungeons initially much more fun with a friend, same with traveling across the desert.
Smarter.
Oh God! Oh shit! Wait, wait.
Do not let us die.
Wait.
Do not let us die. Where is it coming? Where is it going?
God.
Where is it?
I don't know. Which way?
It's
Where is it?
Oh, it's behind us. It's behind us, Red. Oh fuck! I'm going.
BB,
I'm going.
go.
Shit! No, like this. Not like that.
BB, go.
Oof.
Did they just die? Oh no. Oh
Yeah.
I should never.
Oh,
I
what
should
the
not.
fuck?
Were we trying to go to Imperial Station number 10?
I just want to remind everybody at the beginning of this stream, BB had a very big thing that he wanted to tell everybody. He said, "I've never died in this game." Don't trust your friend to drive in the desert. Ever. They'll get you killed by a sandworm. This, like Bellwright, is another game that I think is going to be by far best played with friends, especially if you want to venture into the deep desert at endgame, which relies on PvP. There are long-term concerns for this game with how it funnels players into PvP at the endgame and how that favors large guilds, so we'll just have to see how or if Funcom manages that as players kind of reach that endgame. One place where I really feel Dune Awakening missed the mark though is gearing and enemies. They fall into the trap of pretty much all the games on this list where basically they put on enemies just a bunch of crafting items and enemy corpses over finish items. Now there are a couple times that you will get a actual item from an enemy in Dune Awakening, but it tends to be so almost broken to the point of no use that they're not really that useful at all. Maybe to get you through the next dungeon, but that's about it. This is all a known quantity in survival games, but it is still a frustrating thing coming into these games as a fan of MMOs. And unlike the next games on our list, it's not really something you can solve very easily with mods, because Dune is a much more MMO-like game with official servers and so on. Speaking of our next two games, our top two games, this was damn near impossible to make, and even as I'm recording this, even as I'm going through and recording it now, I'm struggling because I want to flip them, and you'll see why. Enshrouded comes in as a very, very close number 2, in part because it still at times lacks some of that living feel of our number 1 without base raids and dying to falling trees, as well as the not quite as much content. But it's also a survival game that feels so many ways tailor-made for a player like me, an MMO player. Enshrouded takes the voxels of EverQuest Landmark and puts them into a survival RPG with a story to tell. Traversal reminiscent of games like Zelda Breath of the Wild, and challenging combat that you can tweak and tune till your heart's content. Just don't do this stupid shit that I did.
Player mana 25%, stamina 25%. So yeah. Oh god, no!
Remember, you decided this.
Oh my gosh.
I make dumb choices.
Yeah.
I think in general, often don't do the things that I do is it's a good idea. Enshrouded lets you build with more freedom than any game on this list. You can take over existing structures, build from the ground up, or dig deep holes, basements, or underground layers. It's also one of only a few games on this list that doesn't seem to have a physics system for building. For some, that may be a downside, but for me, it gives a lot more freedom to create what I wanted to create. A monstrous structure that defies physics by hanging in the air is a plus. Freedom is kind of at the heart of this game, as it also approaches survival in a different way than others. Instead of treating elements like food, drink, rests, etc. as necessities, they're instead made into buffs or enhancements. You are not necessarily penalized for neglecting a ticking down hunger or thirst meter. You don't have to watch that, but rather you get rewarded for being well rested or eating the right foods. It's a survival game that I think can best be described as one with less friction. For MMO fans, it also boasts fantastic group gameplay, right down to working together to take down big monster bosses that look just a bit like Godzilla. This is perhaps the most MMO-like, with distinct roles like the healer, range DPS, melee DPS, or tank, and they've expanded over time with more ability customization. It's still more limited than I like, and I'd love for them to continue adding more customizations, but even recently they just went ahead and added enhancements that you can add to your weapons, adding yet another way to customize. Oh, and did I mention that Enshrouded has dynamic weather, and NPCs, and instruments, and pets? Pets you can pet. It's still early access, but it's closing in on being one of the best survival games I've ever played, if not the best, and perhaps the easiest to transition for MMO players. Enshrouded servers can host a maximum of 16 players, and a 1.0 release of Enshrouded is planned for spring of 2016 and will include a creative mode. But there's only one king of this survival genre right now, and funnily enough, it is also in early access.
So, brief moment to breathe here. The door to the base is closed.
Oh, come here.
So they can't get in right this second. Okay, Flynn's dead again.
They're leaving. Close the gate.
Valheim is the only game on this list where you can die from mosquitoes, trolls, wolves, the cold, falling trees, and even smoke inhalation. And also perhaps the most low poly graphics and basic game of them all, that is carried very, very heavily by incredible work they've done with their lighting. Valheim, when it launched in February of 2021, opened the gate for a lot of the games in this list, revitalizing a genre that was mostly key to sandbox-style builder games. Valheim stood out to me because it followed a similar style of progression to what I used to do in MMOs. Get power, take on bigger enemies, and eventually big bosses with your friends. The first time I fought the giant tree and realized it had an AoE attack, I was hooked. But I have to be honest, Valheim falls below Enshrouded to me in some key areas, as it leans much more into what you traditionally expect as a survival builder. It is a paradise for builders, and it's one of the most immersive games on the list, with weather, procedural seed generation to change the way the world lays out each new playthrough, an expansive, long-lasting campaign through multiple biomes and a vast world to explore, and even enemy raids to keep you on your toes and make the world feel alive. Dungeons are dark and scary and encourage you to plunder them for their useful materials. It follows the same formula of many on this list and having generally materials only dropping from enemies, but it also has some of the most expansive mods for any game on this list. For fans of MMOs, I can't recommend enough adding in the mod that adds item drops from NPCs to really get the feel of an MMO. And maybe reduce some of your crafting a little bit, unless you really like crafting. More than 10 players isn't officially supported for Valheim, though again, with mods and dedicated servers, this one can grow to 20 or more. Looking at this list, one of the things that probably stands out is that out of 5 of these games, 3 of them are still in early access. Valheim, Bellwright, and Enshrouded are all in early access. Valheim has been in early access since 2021, while Enshrouded and Bellwright started EA in 2024. Bellwright has a planned launch at the end of 2025, Enshrouded spring 2026, and Valheim potentially late 2025 or 2026, once the Deep North biome is complete. Out of those 3 early access titles, Enshrouded by far has exceeded early access expectations, responding to community feedback and consistently providing big game-changing free updates that have continued to improve the game in just over a year since it's been in early access. That consistency is what knocked some other games I was hopeful for off of the list, like Nightingale, which has gone very quiet after suffering layoffs. I know another game that a lot of people would have loved to have on this list is Palworld, and Palworld is definitely a game worth exploring and playing if that's kind of what you're looking for, that kind of Pokemon adjacent, legally distinct from Pokemon adjacent type survival game. For me, Bellwright hit a little bit better, specifically because of how you could basically have the directional combat and the way that the weather and all that interaction worked in that game. These games will never fully replace the feel of MMOs, and I hope that these games don't replace MMOs as the go-to, but it's still nice every now and then to jump into a less stressful adventure, a place where you can go and get some of that experience, especially if you have a static group of friends that you want to go and play with. Even if the games lack that full world, that living world feel at times of an MMO. Let me know down in the comment section what games you would add to this list. My name is Redbird Flynn. Thank you so much for watching. I apologize if I sounded nasally or anything like that because I'm currently getting over a cold, but I really wanted to get this video out. So thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a absolutely wonderful day.
The price of truth can be death. Damian Flynn committed the most heinous sin a politician can. He stood up for what he believed in. Now he's set to die for it. But when a rogue insurgent sees his execution as a revolutionary spark, their rebellion could rewrite the fate of an empire. If they can outlast betrayal, bloodshed, and the bodies piling at their feet.